All right, welcome to another interesting class. And today I want to talk about the diversity beyond race and gender. It's going to be like some minutes discussion. I want to say thank you for this opportunity. All right, so diversity beyond race and gender. The purpose of this presentation is to examine how cognitive, epistemic, functional, and identity diversity influence team effectiveness and organizational performance. And the thesis is diversity contribute most effectively to innovation and decision quality when organizations combine multiple forms of diversity within inclusive parameters and communication norms. So quickly, we're going to see the definition of different, we're going to see some definition of different teams, the differences, the definition, going to explain how inclusion, communication norms, and psychological safety influence the use of diverse perspective. We're going to evaluate the debate regarding viewpoint diversity and demographic diversity. We're also going to examine the relationship between diversity, innovation, and organization ambidexity. And last, we're going to see we're going to present an integrated framework. We're going to provide the research gap and the future research question. So that's it. Okay, quickly, let's see what are the key concepts of diversity. That is, we talk about, we want to devise some of them. Cognitive diversity. This is differences in how people think, solve problem, and process information. That it talks about creativity, analytical thinker. What about epimetric diversity? The difference in ways of knowing and understanding the world shaped by education, culture, or discipline. The functional diversity, that's the differences in role, skills, experts within the group. You know, so then, lastly, identity diversity, differences in personal and social identity. That is the race, gender, ethnicity, sexuality, and so on and so forth. So that being said, types of diversity compare. We have the type, focus, and example. When you talk about cognitive diversity, those are the thinking style. Example, your logical versus creative think. Epistemic diversity, way of knowing things, just like I said in the previous slide, that the example is academics and lived experience. The tools are different. Functional diversity, the skills and roles, and that is designer versus data analysis. And identity diversity, social identity characteristics. Then the example is race, gender. All right. Let's move on. How diversity gets used or ignored in teams. Diversity only improves teams' outcome when inclusion practice ensure that different perspectives are actively invited and integrated into discussion. These are the scholars that supported that. Without inclusion, diverse perspectives often remain dominant, like dead, and do not influence decision because they are never voiced or taken serious. They are ignored. So communication norms determine whether the differences are framed as value resources or a source of conflict, shaping whether ideas are used or dismissed, supported by Rugus Jones 2003. But in contrast, teams with poor communication norms often ignore minority viewpoint, leading to lost insight and weaker decision. All right. So we're also going to see two key magnetic mechanisms that shape outcome in an organization. The first one is psychological safety. This is, we talk about this. We took our time to discuss this in class. is the shared belief that it is safe to speak, which directly increase idea sharing, learning, and experimental in terms. When psychological safety is low, team members with different perspectives are less likely to voice ideas due to the fear of negative consequences. They're not going to talk. They won't even have the audacity to bring thoughts, discussion, and innovation. And research shows that diverse teams only outperform others when psychological safety is high enough to support open contribution. Very important. And the second one is epistemic inclusion. Epistemic inclusion refers to whether people's knowledge is treated as credible and legitimate within a group. Even when ideas are void, they may be ignored if the speaker is perceived as less credible to identity or status bias. That is said to 2020. This process called epistemic inclusion leads teams to undervalue diverse knowledge and reduce the benefit of diversity. So inclusive leadership increase voice behavior by empowering individual, to have their contribution in decision making. All right, want to see high stakes examples, scientific and medical decision. In scientific research and medicine, diverse perspective can, identify risk, error, or alternative solution that homogeneous teams may overlook. This is supported by Peter 2021. However, when teams dismiss ideas from less powerful members, critical insight may be ignored, leading to flawed conclusion or unsafe outcome. It came in 2023. For example, historical and ongoing cases shows that minority viewpoints in science are often overlooked until later validated, delaying innovation and proven solving. They keep doing research until time goes on and keep delaying. In high-risk environments such as healthcare or engineering, lack of psychology safety can prevent individuals from speaking up about errors, increasing the likelihood of serious failure. That's it. All right. So view diversity as a substitute for democratic perspective. The perspective number one. Some scholars argue that viewpoint is the most important factor for improving decision making and knowledge production. In fields like public health and academia, increasing viewpoint diversity is argued to enhance problem solving and better reflect the full range of societal perspective. Vandeloway 2023. Some evidence also suggests that deep level diversity may have stronger effect on innovation and surface level democratic diversity alone. However, the limitation perspective also assumes that democratic diversity naturally leads to viewpoint diversity, which is not always true in practice. So, the perspective two. Study indicated that organizations sometimes strategically redefine diversity in ways that downplay structural inequality and protect dominant groups. This is by Zhang and Kripp 2024. Democratic diversity provides access to lived experience and knowledge that cannot be replicated by viewpoint differences alone. Yeah. Research also opine that attitude toward viewpoint diversity and demographic diversity differ ideologically, meaning they are not interchangeable concepts. So, and the limitation is that it may understate the importance of intellectual disagreement and idea diversity for improving group decision. That's very, very important. All right. And so the evaluation and the conclusion is that overall, research suggests that viewpoint diversity improves reasoning and decision quality, especially when teams engage in contrasting perspective. Zakba and Kubilai 2024. However, democratic diversity contributes unique experimental knowledge and help address structural inequality that viewpoint diversity alone cannot capture. Evidence also shows that broadening diversity definition too far can unintentionally reduce representation of marginalized group. That is the truth. Careful conclusion. Current research does not support the idea that viewpoint diversity can substitute social diversity, but instead, both forms are complementary for effective team and equitable or good performance outcome. All right. So when cognitive and epistemic diversity improve innovation, what happens? It support innovation when teams must generate novel idea and integrate multiple knowledge domains. Innovation ambidextrity refer to the ability to balance explorative innovation and explorative innovation. Diverse perspective provide broader knowledge input that helps teams simultaneously explore new opportunity and refine existing process. However, diversity only improve ambidextrity when teams can effectively integrate different viewpoints. Let's say key magnesium, I beg your pardon, and boundary condition. Ambivalent interpretation. Cognitive diversity improve innovation through a magnesium core ambivalent interpretation, where teams simultaneously consider competing ideas as both opportunity and constraint. Is that not funny? E and Wong 2021. This allowed teams to reconcile tension between exploration and exploitation, leading to higher arbitrarious innovation performance. What are the boundaries condition, organization content, G, system and leadership. The positive effect of diversity depend on boundary condition. So the leadership style, performance system, team climate. We talked about this in our previous class. So the connection between them is that it determines whether the magnetic function effectively, which in turn shape innovation outcome. Seiler et al. 2023. All right. So visual model from diversity to innovation, we have boundaries condition, then mechanism, then outcome. Those are one is like supporting content, the leadership, to enable the interpretation, lead to innovation, ambidextrity, all those one. Then the visual model, that one from diversity to innovation outcome to boundary condition, all those one are something we can easily get. So the research gap, there remains limited empirical evidence explaining how different forms of diversity translates into positive outcome through inclusion mechanism under varying organization condition. And this is the research question that I developed. Relationship between workforce diversity and organization outcome through psychological safety and knowledge sharing mechanism, and under what organization condition are these effects strengthened or weakened? Why this matter? In conclusion, it helps to explain when and why diversity leads to organization benefit rather than assuming diversity alone improve performance. It also addresses call for more rigorous testing of DLA framework and mechanism. So the references, I know they are much, but I tell you, the rigorous work that I find myself to do, you see the references from phase 16, 17, 18, and 19. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you.